Hi, it's Will from stormthecastle.com, and here on YouTube you know me as Epic Fantasy, and this is my latest tutorial. This is how to make the Skyrim Steel Greatsword out of foam board. 4 feet long, pretty good sized sword. I had done the steel sword, right? You can click on the link to do that tutorial if you want. And a lot of people, and I asked, hey, do you want me to make the greatsword too? And a lot of people said yes, so I made it. Here it is. Nice looking sword. It doesn't even fit in the camera. It's pretty big. It's 4 feet, like I said. And it's very strong. The big thing I was worried about with this thing is because it's an assembly, there's actually 2 halves assembled under here. I wanted to make it so it's nice and strong, and it is very strong. You can actually have some fun with this sword. 3 sheets of foam board is all you need. A few other things. Thanks for watching my videos. If you're a subscriber, thanks for subscribing. If not, what do? Hit that button. Dioramas, origami, catapults, and trebuchets, telescopes, terrariums, bonsai trees, and paper games, swords and shields, and real blacksmithing, robotics, animation. I teach the art of real creation. stormthecastle.com. Let's make something. Alright, let's get to building this sword. Print up the template. The link is in the description of this video down below. And take parts 1, 2, and 3 and cut them out. Now I want to show you something here. Notice something on the template. You cut on the dashed lines and the solid lines, but do not cut on the dotted lines. See that dotted line? Dash okay, don't cut dotted lines. Yeah. So you cut those 3 pieces out and you tape them together like this. This forms the handle and part of the ricasso of your sword. And you know, I did it this way so we could get a big sword. This is 4 foot long sword. We had to be assembled. So take that template and trace it onto a sheet of foam board like this. And once you got it traced, now cut the first dotted line, the dotted line nearest the end. It's actually 2 inches from the end. Cut it like that. And then trace it again, making a second one. And you repeat this process, I'll show you. And you can fit all of these on a single piece of foam board. Cut on the dotted line. Again, the final dotted line on this piece. And then trace it again. So now you have 3 pieces, a nice strong sword. These make up the handle and the guard of the sword. Cut them out. Very nice. And then glue them together just like this. 1, 2, 1 right on top of each other. It's real simple. And 3. So now let's do the other end of the sword, the blade. Take parts A, B, and C and cut them out. Same as before. Cut the solid lines and the dashed lines, but do not cut the dotted lines. Tape that template together like this. A, B, and C. It's the same process that you did for the handle. And then trace it onto a sheet of foam board. Then, once you got it traced, cut on the first dotted line and trace it again. Then cut on the second and final dotted line and trace it 1 more time. So now you end up with 3 pieces of the blade. And what do we do with that? You probably can guess. You cut those pieces out. And glue them together. Very nice. I like it. Now this forms a nice strong stack. And then glue those 2 stacks together. And now you've got a 4 foot long sword that's very strong. And we even add a couple more pieces to this, I will show you, to make it even stronger at that joint. We don't want that joint to be weak. So now let's do the guard and the ricasso. That is parts Z1 and Z2. You cut out pieces Z1 and Z2, and tape them together. And the ricasso is an interesting thing. It is a point on the sword beyond the guard that you can grab to choke up on the sword. It's really rather interesting. And cut out the pommel, which is labeled X. Place those on foam board and tape them down in a couple of spots. Not a whole lot, just in a couple of spots so they don't move. Trace or draw around them to transfer the shape. And now we want to also transfer the pattern, all that wonderful pattern on them. And this is how you do it. Press down on the template with a blunted pencil. Press down firmly. So what happens is when you lift up the paper, you can see the indent. And now you can write that out in pencil. So go ahead and do the whole thing. Both of this piece and of the pommel piece. Takes a little bit of time, but it comes out looking pretty good. See? And once you've got those done, do them again. You need one of each for each side of the sword. So 2 pommels and 2 guard ricasso pieces. Now we're going to make that ornamentation stand out really nicely. So this is how you do it. You cut the top layer of paper on the various little segments. And then you pluck out the paper, just like that. So go ahead and do that on the whole thing. It takes some time, but it's worth it. It looks really good. We use the same techniques for the regular steel sword, and now we're just doing it for the greatsword. Let's take a look. See, doesn't that look good? When you paint it, it looks terrific. So cut those pieces out. Cut all 4 of those pieces out. Now the pommel, let's give it some depth. Cut this line like this, just cutting through the top layer of paper, and then run a blunted pencil through it. And see what happens? It makes the pommel separated from the grip, the handle part. It's a nice look. Glue the pommels on, one on top and one on the bottom. And then glue the ricassos on, one on the top, one on the bottom. And the ricasso, if I could talk a little bit more, using a greatsword is great for distance. You can swing it wide, but if an opponent gets in close, you're kind of in trouble. You can't bring the sword in close. But now, see where my left hand is there? You grab the sword up there, and now you can do a little bit of in-closer fighting. And that's the reason why they had that. So let's paint it. Paint the pommel black. No need to paint the handle. We're going to cover it. Paint the guard and the ricasso black. And paint the blade black. And make sure you get the paint in all those ornaments. Get it really deep in there to get everything, no more white. You want to get rid of all the white of the foam board in those ornaments. Very nice. So next we are going to use a technique you're probably familiar with if you watch my videos. It's called dry brushing. And for this we're going to use some silver paint. You get the silver paint on your brush and you dab most of it off and then you lightly swipe on your sword. So only a little bit of the paint is transferred over. And you can do this as much as you want to get the color richer and richer and deeper and deeper. But it gives it a good metallic look. It looks like metal. That's it. Do all those black parts now with the dry brushing of silver. And if you don't have silver, you can use a light gray. And paint your pommel silver, totally silver, because it gives it a nice look. And that's it. There we go. It's painted. The only thing remaining now is to wrap it. Wrap the handle and the ricasso. You could use leather. You could use cloth. I'm using contact vinyl paper. See, that backing is adhesive. You peel off the backing and you stick it on, which is really nice. And a brown color. If you can't do any of that, just go ahead and paint these things brown. That'll be fine. I do like the vinyl contact paper here. It's kind of neat. I have a whole mess of it, so I might as well use it. You do the handle and the ricasso. See, that's where you grip here when you want to choke up on the sword. You grip it up here so you can do smaller swings and do closer infighting. Now, as if it were leather, it's got to be stitched. Oh, wait a minute, here, one more thing first. There's a little bit of ornamentation on the sword. That's kind of neat. Cut yourself a few strips of foam board really thin, then turn them sideways and cut them in half. Cutting through the foam, so it's now you have strips of foam board that are thin. And then you take a thin piece and you wrap them on the sword. Like this, I'll show you, right there. 3 pieces wrapped roughly in the center of the handle. And glue them on. But so now what you have is strips of foam board that are about half as thick as normal foam board. And then paint them. Silver. So now let's do the stitching of the leather wrapping. And you can do it a whole bunch of different ways. You could even, paint on the stitching. You can make little X's with some string and then glue them on. What I opted to do was to cut holes in the handle like this, and then I ran waxed leather working thread through the holes. The leather working thread is waxed and it's thicker, so it has a nice look to it. But if you don't have any, improvise something different. You can paint it on, or use like a thin twine or something if you wanted. But this gives it a nice authentic look if you actually sew it. And that's both halves of the handle. See? Looks good. I like it. Next we do wrapping on the ricasso. And for this I actually use the shoelace because it's much thicker than the handle part. So I did the same thing. I cut some holes. I punctured holes in the ricasso, and then I ran a shoelace through it, wrapping it around in the next pattern, and then wrapping around that triangular shape up top. And that's it. Your sword is done. Make sure you send me a picture. I'd love to see it. I will send you a certificate of contribution. Fun project, takes some time, particularly that ornament work. But it's a strong sword, 4 feet in length, and something you can be proud of making. Hang it on the wall. Thanks for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're a subscriber, thanks for subscribing to my channel. If you're not a subscriber, hit that button. I always have lots of fun and interesting and very creative projects. I do 2 new ones every week. As an example, here's a couple more videos you might want to watch.